right, man. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome
Happy
to
New Year.
another Sunday of Lambdas Who Roll Live, where brotherhood meets jiu-jitsu, sharing stories, advice to help you on your jiu-jitsu journey. I'm your host, Dr. Hernan, and as always, I'm joined with my co-hosts, Professor Diego and Coach Fernando. What's going on, fellas? How you guys doing in 2022 so far?
What's going on, guys? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, we
You
took a
better
little
get
break
sleeping.
last week. Yeah, we took a little break last week, to kind of celebrate the new year, but we're back now, so it's exciting to be back, and got a couple things to talk about today, which is awesome. And but we've been having a
Yeah.
pretty good conversation these past few weeks, and we've been dealing with a couple things ourselves. But I personally haven't been able to get on the mats too much at all this 2022. Unfortunately, having to deal with this COVID thing going around, man. But it is
Uh,
what it is.
hmm.
Um, but it's given me a chance to kind of like catch up on some reading, watch a lot of videos, and start planning for this year. Um, and it's funny, the thing is, for this particular show, I had thought about wanting to talk about sucking at jujitsu because
How not to
uh,
suck.
of how not to suck at jujitsu, right? And then we kind of changed it. Well, we changed it to improving ways to improve in 2022. And the way it came about was right before the new year. I had gone to a friend's school to go train with some of his students and stuff, and for some reason I felt off that day. I don't know. I couldn't piece things together, and went with some lower belts and stuff, and I just couldn't piece things together. And I left there really like questioning, how I was doing. I couldn't put moves together. I couldn't,
Hmm.
really distinguish what technique goes next, and I felt really rusty. I don't know why. It was really strange. And I had another class on Friday right before New Year's Eve, and I felt better, rolling with some of my students here and stuff. But still, and then it kind of dawned on me, like, how can I improve my jiu-jitsu? So I went back and I started thinking about it. But do you guys ever feel that? You guys ever feel days where your jiu-jitsu just sucks and you want to know why? Like, is
I
it
know.
something?
Yeah, Fernando, I know you've been training. I mean, you
Mhm.
started getting into it right away. So
Yeah,
how is that? And I know that you can touch upon a little bit
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, this week I can talk about it. This week I felt the same way. I was doing a competition class, but I'm trying to hit my goal of 200 jujitsu classes for 2022. So I wanted to start off really hard, and yeah, I did the competition class. And it was an eye opener, just the way things are done, with the wrestling aspect, like something I've never wrestled before.
Yeah.
So that was tough, like doing like the wrestling drills and then doing the positional sparring. And I was going, it was matched up, and I just couldn't do anything, like I just was looking around. I got into that trap of trying to compare myself to others, like in between rounds. Like for example, we were doing half guard, like somebody was starting a half guard and you had to, the person on top would have to pass, the person on bottom get a sweep, and I just was stuck in the half guard. I could not pass for nothing. And then just looking around and just seeing other people just passing, and I'm just like, what is going on? And you guys know, I started to question myself. I got frustrated. The doubts, like, why am I doing this? Like I just can't, like, and like I just felt
Mm.
bad, like, like really down, discouraged, almost like I left that class defeated, like questioning myself, like, is this worth it? Like, why am I doing this? Am I wasting my time? Those type of things. And so yeah, so I feel you. I feel you on that.
That sound like two Debbie Downers, bro.
Yeah, no.
To kick off
To kick off
2022.
2022.
Yeah, yeah.
Wah, wah.
Question,
No,
man.
yeah, man. I mean, I think the feeling is always gonna be there. I mean, we've advised, like, white to black, right? Everyone's gonna feel that. Man, I guess the again, man, you're never gonna get that out of the way,
Mm,
right? That's never gonna be something that you get rid of. like I just told Fernando yesterday, man, like, it's gonna happen at white, blue, purple, brown, and black, right? That feeling of not moving forward, but you can't beat yourself up too much, on that. And at the same time, I think is also the season, for like Jay, like your situation. I think it's just the season, also the whole feeling. If everybody, the energy is a little bit different, I think, all the way around. you know. And I think it has to do with, again, the season, what's going on around this time. So I think that energy makes a huge difference as well, man. Not having the same training as before, and then having a little bit of I guess let's call it doubt, right? Or like a little bit of that precaution.
Mhm.
I think all that plays a big role in how the game is played in whatever moment, the feeling, and I guess like going on to the other gym, I think we spoke about it a little bit after you came out of that training session, and just training with other people, and I think we're going to go through a few things on how to address that. But I think is going to a different school, meeting a different group of people, what I'm saying, and I think in those moments when you go to a different school, you expect to perform in a certain way, and then when you don't, it's kind of like, man, like what happened? That feeling. Um, but yeah, I mean, let's
Yeah,
go ahead.
I kind of I definitely agree with what Diego said, because like even like I guess like with that transition from the end of the year to like the new year, I take it even like one better, like professional wise, like you can see like the energy, like it's trying to start up again, like after being on a break for a couple weeks, and then trying to restart and get into that work mindset. I could see that. And then also too, like myself, for example, like with jujitsu, like if you see my attendance, like when it's like these holidays and like family time, I can tend to like slow down because of during this COVID period, like I try to reduce possible exposure. So like I guess trying to being away for like a little bit and then trying to start back up, you know straight
Yeah.
Getting it back on the
straight through
horse
it.
kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah, it was it was kind of tough. Yeah, sorry about
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of those two. When I think about it and I listen to you guys, the one for sure, going to a different gym, trying rolling with new people and new experience, it always throw you off your game, right? If you're constantly rolling with similar individuals that kind of know your game, and you're playing a certain method, and then you're going somewhere else where it throws you off a little bit. I don't think I did terrible, but it just felt like I couldn't piece things together. But yeah, I mean, it still it makes you kind of feel a little something about yourself. But I think it also is the end of the year. You're closing out the year. It's not, you kind of taking a little lull. Even right now, for example, right now I haven't been on the mat for about a week and a half now, and I'm kind of, you look, not necessarily concerned about going back on the mat. I mean, it's not that. It's just I know that it's not. I'm not going to be 100%, right? And I have to deal with that, both physically and mentally, and having to overcome that. That's going to be a challenge in itself, right? Because now you gotta,
Mm.
your cardio is probably not going to be 100%, and even your technique might be a little rusty. Your timing might be a little off, and but yeah, just having
I
to
th-
deal with that.
yeah, and I think that goes into one of the points that you were mentioning. Like, and again, we're gonna go down a few things, but like you mentioned, like taking it slow, right, coming back, and again, the whole reset is gonna happen no matter what. And I think again, this time around is a little different because of everything that's going on. But like like again, taking it slow, coming back in, and you know, um, because I mean, I guess I feel a little bit different, right? I was really like into the whole, our last episode, right? I was really into the jujitsu thing, and like, that high was there, and for me, I was piecing certain things together, and I was excited, and then obviously, like, COVID finally struck, right? And so that again, the the mentality of coming back, doing things a little bit slower, step by step, coming back into that white belt, quote unquote, white belt mentality, right? And again, it does feel like ironically, right? We're going into 2022, brand new year. It just
Yep.
feels like, man, we got to start all over
All
in a
over
certain
again.
way,
Yep.
right?
Mm. It's interesting too. Like as I was thinking about the show and the situation that I found myself in at the end of my last sessions, um, I looked it up. Obviously, like you know, I suck at jiu-jitsu. My jiu-jitsu sucks. My jiu-jitsu stinks. And there's so many articles on the web about it. So it's not something that's new, right? Or it's something unique to yourself. It's something that happens to everybody at some point in their journey, which is reassuring, right? I guess because you don't feel alone. It's not necessarily something that you're uniquely going through, or there's something wrong with you, but it's a stage that you have to kind of overcome in your journey. And that's something that I think everybody needs to understand, that at some point you're going to question your jujitsu. You're going to question why you're doing it, to be honest. I mean, there was times I remember, and I was telling Fernando this when we were talking on offline, was, I mean, there's been a few times where I've said, you know what, maybe this is it, because I didn't feel any more progression. Uh, but I remember one time, right before a friend of mine got his black belt, I um I thought me and him were kind of neck to neck, right? And all of a sudden he gets his black belt, and probably like I wouldn't say like 3 years before I ended up getting mine. And I thought, like, once he got it, I was like, okay, that's my indicator. Here we go. I'm up next, and it didn't happen, right? And I started questioning, well, what is it about him that makes him distinguished enough so that he can get his black belt, and what is it about me that makes it singles me out as not being there yet. And it started really like hitting me. So one of the things that I realized that, and I'm glad that I realized it early. And it's funny because and when I early, I mean early at that stage, not early in my jiu-jitsu journey, because obviously at brown belt, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be thinking about that, or maybe you do. I don't know. But if I end up finding myself in that situation, but in that moment, it dawned on me to not really compare myself. And we tell this to people all the time: don't compare yourself to anybody else, right? But you get stuck in your own mess, right? In that own issue, not having to compare yourself to someone else. And it's true. I mean, that advice, it should be etched in every single gym across the world. Don't compare yourself to anybody else, because really your journey is your own. Everybody else is going through their own growth pattern. You might have the guy tomorrow coming to the gym, and he's a phenom, flexible, like we are talking about Fernando, flexible wrestler, has some type of background, and all of a sudden he's a blue belt in 6 months, and you're like, wait a minute, it took me 3 years, right? And then you start realizing, wondering, well, what is it about him and not me? And really, it shouldn't really be about that. And luckily for me, I think I knew enough to realize it early at that stage, and I focused the next 3 years on myself, and I invested in myself. That's the thing. I think a big part is that you should invest in yourself. And one of the advices that I gave Fernando was, what I did was I started taking private lessons. And I didn't really take private lessons much in the beginning of my journey, but towards the end, I took a lot of private lessons, and that really helped me tremendously, because it was a time for me to focus on me and get the attention that I felt I needed to point out weaknesses, holes, and really clean up things that I felt I couldn't realize on my own, right? Or you wouldn't have been realizing it in a regular class, right? Because you have so many other people there. You're drilling with a partner. Your partner's probably not going to be giving you the feedback that you need. But when you go with someone that's a lot more advanced than you, a higher competitor than you, and they'll give you that external critiques that you need. So I think that's really an important factor if you really want to start moving forward, is invest in yourself by potentially getting some private lessons, or maybe even like a group private, maybe like two, you and your buddy, and having that with your professor. I think that really helped tremendously for me, and that's what put me on the road for me to start progressing forward, and then eventually, getting the black belt stuff. But the thing is, it happens all the time. It happened again at black. I kind of like brushed it off really fast, because I immediately wrote down 5 things that I felt that everybody needs to do in order to kind of get over that hump. And it kind of led into the segment that we are talking about today. But it's interesting that it does happen to everybody at no matter what belt level, like Diego said. But there's two things, and I told Fernand this the other day too, and I keep on saying Fernand because we were talking about this. But there's two roads that you could take, right? You're either going to go down the road where you're going to just constantly be thinking about this and never move forward, progress, maybe eventually get off the road and end up leaving jiu-jitsu, or you're going to go down the road where you're going to put it behind you, start pushing forward, invest in yourself, do things that is going to make your jiu-jitsu better, realize that this is part of the journey, and then you're going to be able to move forward in whatever direction that you need to, by focusing on yourself. So does your jiu-jitsu stink? Everybody's jiu-jitsu stinks. I think everybody at some point sucks. Even the best of us at some point they'll say that they were horrible. You're not alone in this struggle, but yeah, that's it. So
So
why don't we go ahead?
no, yeah. I was gonna ask Fernando, being that he's again the only one right now training, but in that whole you know comparing yourself to whether it be white to brown or people that you're training with,
Mhm.
how is it that what is it that you feel when you're training? It's easier said than done, right? Excuse me, it's easier said than done than as far as like, hey, focus on yourself. It's a journey of your own, and it is, right. The concept is, it is, right. The Like, that's the reality, but it's really difficult, when you're actually in it, when you do see things moving forward and you're not, like, what is it that goes through your head? Like, right now, I don't compare myself to too many people, right. I really don't, to anyone. I think throughout the journey, it was really, really low in numbers. But now, as a black belt, like, yeah, I don't compare myself, because like, I'll drive myself crazy, but what is it that you feel as a blue belt, as someone who is progressing into purple, when you go and train and you're training with other partners, what's going through your head?
Well, when I compare myself, so like, let's say like we're on like the same path. Let's say we have like similar rank basically, but then I start noticing that they do like different things in their game. Then I'm like, dang, how come they can do that but I can't? And those are some of the things that I guess it's been a struggle for me throughout my whole life. Like, I've always been like this, like I'm like, dang, why does that person do this but I can't? Like things of that nature. For example, I've seen like a couple cats do like like inversions and things like that in their roles. But if I try that, I'm gonna get stuck and then end up in bad positions. So I'm like, like when I think about that progression, and I just say, wow, like I feel like that person, like is like right there at purple belt, but I feel like I'm not, like I feel like I'm just like, you know, and I could be wrong, I don't know, but
But do
that's
you
those are the type of
but
things.
but do you feel like, let's take that example, that person who knows how to invert but you don't, is that something that now you feel like, oh man, it's not on my list, so I don't feel like I'm progressing because it's on his list? You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
because
Like,
I feel like at purple you got to have like a certain like, you know, you could just tell, like it's weird, like, and I apologize for people who watching that don't really practice too much, because like kind of hard to explain,
yeah,
like so when I see like like a high level blue belt and things like that, I'm like, oh, like when I'm like, oh, they're progressing to purple, but I could see like, like things that they do. I'm like, yeah, that's, yeah, he's on the right track. And sometimes I feel like that's not like that for me. But then again, like, everybody's game is different. I have to realize that, but that's just something that is a mental block
yeah.
that I just cannot
Mm.
get past, and that's the thing, like always comparing myself to other people. And
Yeah,
it's
Professor Brick, and I think Jay, I think it is. I don't know if it was the time that we went or I was alone at that time, um, because I was concerned with that. I think it was during brown belt, and I was like, man, I don't feel like a brown belt, at all, right? I don't have the techniques that I feel like I should have. Um, and he was like, he's like, I don't feel like a black belt. and he's a high level black belt in my eyes. Competes. He's a really nice guy, and he was basically saying, I'm a black. I feel like a black belt in certain areas, but in a certain area I'm a blue belt. In another area I'm a purple belt. In another area maybe I'm a white belt. That really leveled things out for me because it made it what is that called, like uh I don't know, it just made it like on the same level as everyone, right? It wasn't like, oh, you have to be this elite person in order to achieve certain things. um so that leveled out a lot of things because now in certain categories I felt like I met the mark, so that helped me go forward, right? So that's why I ask, like, is it something that you keep adding to the list, that you feel like, oh man, they're doing X, Y, and Z. They know how to, they know, I don't know, worm guard. I don't. So is that something that, oh man, I don't feel like I can progress because I don't know that yet. Because at that point it's gonna be a never ending list, right? So it makes it like basically you end up challenging yourself more than anyone else. Because like I said, like for example, you may be, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you're a lot more than what I'm saying, but like you may be a blue belt in a certain area, but you're still learning. So you're a white belt in like like when I roll with some of these guys at Nogi, some of these white belts are phenomenal, bro. So can I feel? Imagine if I feel that I have to be a black belt in nogi. Forget it. I'll never read. Even though I still feel that, and I still have to progress. Obviously, it helps me move forward, right? Or it helps me like fill in those gaps and work towards it, right? Because now I enjoy a little bit more nogi and I learning a little bit more in that.
Yeah.
But because of his advice, I felt like, hey, you know what? The pace is okay now, right? Because again, I'm moving forward. I feel like, okay, I can master a certain category and now feel comfortable in that category and then continue to work on everything else.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that because I don't think if you talk to any black belt anywhere in the world and ask them, do you feel like a black belt? They'll probably say no. And I think the biggest reason why is because jiu-jitsu is an expanding universe. I mean,
And it's like the
everybody,
more you know,
the
the
less you
less you
know.
know.
Right, because you think
Yeah.
about it, there's so much out there, so much information out there that it's impossible for one person to know it all. So will you truly be a black belt? Probably not. You'll be good at what you do. You'll be good
Yeah.
at what your game, and that's why I'm really emphasizing on the fact of focusing on you because it's really about your game, and that's the black belt level that you should be at, and it's true, and I definitely attest to that fact that of what Brick said and I think Adam also mentioned the same thing about the importance of mastering something, right? Picking one thing and becoming so good at that that's your go-to,
That's
like
your
your
thing.
bread
Yeah.
and butter, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be for competition to win this, to win that. It's not about that. It's for you to know that this is my game. This is what I play. Like for example, Adam plays half guard really well. And he knows like he can resort to that at any moment. If he wants to try something else, fine. But in trouble, boom, he goes back to half guard. And that's his game, right? That's his bread and butter. And but you're right. Like, I mean, who's a black belt at every single thing? Probably not. And I don't think any black belt would in their right mind would say, yeah, I'm a hard 100% black belt at everything. So that makes a whole lot of sense. So we wanted to talk a couple of things, but so I came up with a list of 5 things. I'm going to read them off, and I want you guys to just tell me what you think about that. Is it legit? Should we add to it? So, ways to improve your jiu-jitsu for 2022, and this is no magic. This is no secret sauce. This is not like oh, here we go. I mean, this is just experience and just logic, in my opinion, right? Um, so the first thing that I would recommend for you to ways to improve your jiu-jitsu in 2022 is number one, take it slow and focus on one thing at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself with so many techniques. Don't start YouTubing how to invert and the next day how to worm guard or whatever it is, and then you haven't really done any of them, right? So take it slow, focus on one thing at a time and put yourself into the specific position that you want to drill over and over and over again. So if you're working on long step passes, that's all you should be doing every single roll that you have, just long step pass over and over and over again. And if you successfully hit the pass, stand up again and find yourself in that situation again. So you can
Yeah, I
drill
think
it
that's
over
one
and
of
over again.
yeah, I think that's one of the things that we all experience, we all do, um, where we may do something one or two times in the move in the role, then we feel like, oh man, we got it, and then we keep moving forward. And I think that kind of like, like what I've understood later on. Obviously, in the beginning, it's a little bit like, um, what is it? And as a blue belt, purple, as a white belt, blue belt, right? It's a little different where, you do something and you're like, oh man, okay, let me add something else. Let me add something else instead of that whole mastery idea, right? Like, hey, try it, try it. And if it works, try it in a different way, and then try it in a different way, and then try it in like what I tell these guys now, where it's like, yeah, try the move, and then once you feel comfortable in that move, that's it. Don't like let it go, right? In that moment, right? You have to try something else or piece something together with it. Either some people either try it, they do it, and then they let it go. They don't give themselves enough time for it to marinate. Um, which obviously you overwhelm yourself, right? So
Yeah.
definitely like taking it slow and trying to move over and over in the drill, in the role, in the class.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, so take it slow, focus on one technique at a time, and really put yourself in that position where you're actually executing that move. And I think that positional sparring is really going to help in that
Yeah.
situation. Taking it slow, not every role doesn't have to be so intense or for a submission or for to be the king of the hill and stuff like that. Give yourself a chance to be vulnerable, and see what happens. So the second thing we had mentioned was drill to win. Right, repetition is the mother of study. And this is something that I took from a seminar that I attended with Sinistro a couple years back, when we had like a little chat after class, and we asked him, well, how do you get better? How do you feel you've progressed so much along the way? And one thing he mentioned, and I think this was something that I took, and part of the biggest takeaway from that whole thing was, he said, invest in yourself 5 minutes after class. Take a partner and say, hey, I have this one move, and you drill it for 5 minutes. And after that, if you keep on adding, you add all those minutes you've invested after class, they add up, right? 5 minutes today, 5 minutes tomorrow, 5 minutes the next day. Before you know it, you've already drilled that move. So a couple hours, right, throughout the year. So what I put was 5 minutes before class. Use that as a way to warm up, and then maybe 10 minutes after class. It's 15 minutes extra on the mat, but you just drill one particular move over and over again, and I think that's going to play dividends in your jujitsu. And I think one of the things that we don't experience much, um, and this is something that I've seen it kind of go to several gyms, just the way classes sometimes are organized, and maybe you'll find this more like in a competition style class, but the way classes are organized, you don't really drill a lot, right? You get it, you go, you warm up, you get a technique, you work it for a few minutes, boom, it's time to roll, and that's it. And then the next day you learn something different, and that kind of really feel that hurts people's progress. I think that focusing on one particular technique, doing it over and over again, and like I said, you probably find that more in a competition style class where drilling is more, key or crucial in their development. But definitely using that to improve your jiu-jitsu. If you're not drilling at all, you need to add that to your jiu-jitsu. So that has to be
Yeah.
something that you focus on.
Yeah. You need to add it as a drill, or if you don't feel comfortable drilling, because I know a lot of people, they don't like the repetition or whatnot, that they need to make it a point to drill it in the role,
Yeah. Why do you
right?
think people
So
don't like to drill?
it gets to be sometimes it gets boring.
Or
Attention
but
span.
is that
Yeah.
is that is that just like
No,
our nature, like as Americans,
no, but so what I've realized, well, number one, it's you have to have a good partner. It's boring if you don't. If the partner is not giving you the right feedback physically, right? Not like
Mhm.
verbally, it's not. It becomes a waste of time.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, all right, like if my time, if I can't drill it correctly, then I might as well just roll, because then for me, then I'm gonna try it while you're giving me natural reactions,
Yeah.
right? So this is why, like, either if you can't drill it, then drill it in the roll, because yeah, sometimes
And
um
it's funny. The reason why I say it's is it part of our nature, right? As Americans, that we just don't like to do it over again. Just give me more information, or just as a species now, give me more information, but don't let me actually execute. I just want the information, but I don't want to really actually do it. And it's funny because if you look at schools, and maybe this is just the facade that you see on the internet, but if you look at schools in Brazil, those guys are going hard all the time. And I remember I was talking to someone, I can't remember who the individual was, but he was talking about Leandro Lowe, and he came and showed a technique. And when he showed the technique, he was doing it with purpose, right? And he was telling the students there at the seminar, you got to do it this way. And they were hitting it hard. And I remember in another experience having a conversation with another with professor from Brazil, saying that the Americans really don't train the way they do in Brazil, right? They over there they are pounding hard, they're going hard, they're pounding each other, they're drilling hard, they're doing this at a certain level of intensity, and then you kind of see the type of talent that comes out of there. But then here, yeah, you have your Americans that are really good, like JT, Keenan, and stuff like that. But those guys also are training and drilling really hard. But then the other people are like, well, I just want to do jiu-jitsu for more like a kind of a social thing. Um, but it only kind of gets you so far, right? Like, I don't think your jiu-jitsu is going to be like up here. It might be like right here, decent, for yourself with whatever the purpose you need. But I think if your goal is to kind of get up here, you got to bring it up a little bit more as well, right? It's funny because I'm saying this, I'm thinking about what Professor O said on the chat the other day. Was like, what did he say about the two timers? He called it the what
the
do you call it, the
cardio,
plan? The
cardio.
cardio plan, right? He said the cardio plan. If you only come for 2 times a week, you got to bring it up to the other plan. What was it? The
The
competition plan, or
I forgot the other two. I mean,
he,
what I know is
oh,
online plan, YouTube plan, YouTube.
yeah. So it really talks about, like, if you really want to get your jiu-jitsu up here in 2022, you got to pick it up a notch. You can't just continue doing what you were doing in 2021 or before that. You have to really, start picking it up a notch, even in the way you're doing things you're doing normally. You got to kick it up. So that way it increases everything, right? Your intensity levels, the way, your the speed, the purpose, having all that in mind. And I think it plays key. Yeah, for sure. You have to have a good drilling partner. And I think that's why, like, in the class, you might not really get that, because you might just team up with somebody who just raised their hand. Oh, there you go. But that's why I think it's important to do it in the beginning and the end, because you can actually pick your training partner, someone who has the same goals as you. So, but yeah, drilling to win, I think, is super important. Um, the third one, and we were just talking about this, was don't compare yourself to anyone. Just focus on your own personal growth. Easier said than done. I get it. I mean, I just had, my own, you know, drama for last 2 weeks or so, but it happens. Just brush it off and move forward. You got to really just focus on your own jujitsu. You started on the mats, just you. And honestly, the path that you walk, although you have influences, you have teachers, you have students, you have teammates and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it is your own personal journey. So just make it worth your while, and focus on just you, not anybody else. That's something that's you really got to try to do. But that's a battle within, right? The fourth one is go with the best in class. I know that I basically, like, don't cherry pick people and say, I'm gonna look at that guy. He's not as strong. I'm gonna go with him so I can go home and feel good about myself, right? Always seek out the best person in class, because that person is going to push you to a limit you probably don't want to be pushed, but you got to go there. You got to get pushed, right? Fernando, what do you think, man? Do you think is it wise to go with the strongest person in class, or um, what do you think, man?
Do you want me to lie to you, or?
Tell me, yeah, I want your honest opinion. Like, man, what do you think about that point number four?
I mean,
The best in class.
I've done both. You know, like there's been times where I'm like, all right, that cat's good. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm a pretend I'm going for a water break, or I'm gonna move to the opposite side of the mat, things like that. But then there's other times too where I mean, if you get me mad enough, especially like I'll be like, all right, you know what? I think you need another crack at it. Let's go. Those type of things. But no, I do agree. With that to go in the best in class. But when you say that though, like, do you mean like by rank? So like
I
if that's the case, then I would always go with against like
I
like the.
think I think it's when I say that, I don't mean just necessarily rank. I mean rank obviously plays a role, but
Mhm.
I think people who are very technical,
Okay.
and you got to be careful because obviously the best in class might be smashing everybody because they're just real spazzy and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just hurting everybody.
Hmm.
That's not the best in class. I feel for me, like if we really want to define it well, obviously rank is key, and you would assume that the higher the rank you go, the more technical you are. But really, guys who are going to play chess with you, right? It's going to put
Hmm.
you in situations where, like, oh man, I need to think about this, and not really looking to submit you in the first 3 seconds, right? They're going
Hmm.
to give you some work, give you time to also work out of it and kind of develop your game, but really challenge you, push you to another limit. I think that's really
Well,
what I suggest.
yeah. So yeah, man, I agree. The best in class is definitely not the higher belt. There was a time where we had a black belt that came in. I didn't know him too well. Really nice guy, but older, right? And I knew him more than anyone else in the class or in the school, because I met him from prior. So when he came in, again, black belt, he taught. I gave him the stage so that he can teach. I was a brown belt at that time. Um, but when people were coming in, they thought he was, let's say, quote unquote, the best in class, right? He was the black belt on the mat, right? And when people were rolling with him, it's not that he needed to smash everyone, but he wasn't giving the people, other students, that, like you said, like that chess match, right? That so even if it wasn't physical, yeah, he's an older man. Like you can't expect to him to be, a competing athlete, a competing athlete. So at the end of the day, but he also wasn't giving that black belt challenge. So he is not the best in class, right? Even though he was the black belt. So I think it's like, just to kind of again piggyback off that, I feel is like it's right? In the class who is giving you that heart, who is giving you that effort, that push, you know, um, and sometimes that person is the best in class, in the best in that class, that moment, right? Sometimes, man, like if you come in and you pick me out, I'm probably lazy that day, and I'm probably tired, and hey, man, I'm not the best in class today, so
Yeah, right.
sorry, who's going to give you a little bit more, energy, and also maybe some good feedback. I
Yeah.
think the upper ranks are more like, when it comes to like coaching and all that, that should be sought out on that level, you know. So
And,
yeah, I
and to
mean,
go off of
definitely
what
pick some.
and to go off your point, so sometimes like for me, like I prefer rolling with like the I guess the upper belts because I guess it's like more I feel like more comfortable, like in a space where like I'm a little bit safe. Whereas, that you get somebody like similar rank or even a lower rank than you, they're like spastic, it could lead to potential injuries and things like that.
Right.
So
Right.
that's like sometimes that like those are like some of the reasons and stuff like that, why, like I might avoid like I see somebody I've seen like him like he might have injured somebody in the past. I'm like, what, I'm gonna avoid him, because I've seen the way that person rolls, so those are the type of things. So like that's why I always, I tend to feel more comfortable, with the upper belt. And also too, so I feel sometimes like the higher ranks, they let me play my game a little bit more.
Right.
Mm.
Whereas where, like I said, similar rank or lower rank, it's a fight. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah, like whereas an upper
Well,
belt will let me play my game. Maybe they're working on things themselves. So
and the lower ranks, and maybe someone that's at the same rank as you, it's kind of like they have something to prove, right? I mean, it's the lower rank who's a white belt going to blue or whatever it is, they're they got a target on your back, because if they beat the blue belt, it validates where they're at, right? And then the guy who's at your level, it's, hey, where this is a, for gold, this is who's going to be the best at this rank at this school right now. And so they kind of have that mindset. With the higher belt, you don't really get that, right? It's just it's a role. It's let's see how you're doing, let's see how I'm doing, and we both play our game. And I kind of like that. I like the chess game, and I know a lot of people criticize the black belt level matches because they're so quote unquote boring. They go 10 minutes and no submissions or anything like that, or the last 30 seconds is really when they turn it up. But all of that 9.5 minutes of just strategy, just kind of thinking and seeing the setups, the grips, right, where the leg positions are for those last 30 seconds that count, boom, and then they turn it, turn the tide, and all of a sudden they got a sweep, and then boom, and even an advantage, right, and they win. For me, I like that because that's kind of where we're at, right? When I go with like Diego, when I go with another black belt, there is kind of like that slow approach, methodical approach, thinking, okay, I see you got this grip here. Well, let me see if I do this and let me do that, and you kind of have that chance to really think things through. Obviously, it's not always like that. Sometimes they're going to pick it up a notch and just really turn it up. But it's nice to go with people that'll help you develop, and that's why go with the best in class. You don't want to go with the guy who's spazzy. You don't want to go with the guy who's it's always about winning worlds at every single role. You want to go with that guy who is technically good and is going to make your technique shine, or bring to light things that you need to work on. And I think that's really what Diego talking about. It's a good point. Someone that is going to be able to give you that feedback. So, but keep that in mind. I'm not saying it's not good to go with lower belts. It's really good too, because one, you have to help them. You also want to be that guy for them. And two, I like going with white belts because it's kind of like, have you ever seen
experiment time.
Experiment time, right? Yeah, and they just don't know anything, and they're going crazy, and you're like, all right, this is it. This is how a street fight's going to be. These people don't know anything, and how do I survive? Is it like, you ever seen that movie Twilight? Well, like the new breeds, no, you never seen Twilight? Oh my goodness. Come on, bro. Come on, man. You're too gangster for Twilight, bro. You gotta watch Twilight.
Bro, it's really good. You go to Disney, bro. You go to Disney World, bro.
Oh, even on Netflix now, man. But anyway, what I was gonna me saying what I was gonna say doesn't really make make sense, because Fernando hasn't watched it. But the new vampires who are made new vampires, they're like spazzy, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that, right? They just fresh, spazzy, and they don't know anything, and they're just coming at you with 110% full adrenaline. But that's also a good time for you to really test your survival abilities. Can you get them in those crazy moments where it's chaos and you don't know, it's unexpected. So that's also good too, right? But if you're talking about ways to improve myself, I really think it's better to go with someone that is really technical. So.
And I think, just to touch on that, like, this is why jiu-jitsu, right? It's very, it is what it is, because look, you can train. We just covered being able to train from the beginner, from someone who doesn't know anything whatsoever, and still benefit from that. If you go to any other art and you fight, you can't fight a beginner, right? You're gonna outpower them. You're gonna have much more technique. Your punches and kicks, are gonna be sharp. They can't give you a reaction that will benefit you, right? Because then you can't practice. But in jiu-jitsu, you can not know anything, and you're still gonna give me that time to either learn, to try, right, to experiment. I'm still going to benefit from those 5 minutes, which is pretty interesting if you look at it. There's no other art that gives you that, even in any other sport. Like, think about it. If you play one-on-one with someone who doesn't know who's always traveling, how are you going to benefit? Like, you can't. Like, it's impossible, right? Travel, foul, like, all the time. There's no progression. But here, the person can make a mistake. They can foul you. They can punch you. And it's like, hey, you know what? This is a fight, so let me control it. Now, maybe you're controlling your anger. Maybe you're controlling something that is benefiting you throughout the role,
100%. And then the last one, number 5, that we put on the list was really probably like
the hard one.
The hard one.
throw in that.
is working on your cardio and strength and diet, and because the rolling isn't enough. You got to get in shape. You got to, in order for you to develop technically, you have to invest in time off the mat as well, right? Which is focusing on your cardio, upping your strength, increasing, your abilities, muscle mass, and and really eating right. And honestly, man, that's probably the most challenging thing. Um,
Yeah,
but in all honesty, that if you really want to get better at jujitsu, you have to have a longer gas tank, or a bigger gas tank than anybody else, right? You have to be strong. You have to eat well. You have to have, giving your body the proper fuel that it deserves. And we were talking about this on our group. Um, I think Miguel had mentioned about strength over technique, and I mentioned that strength is key, but technique is always going to beat strength where when strength doesn't have any technique, right? So the technical person will always win, in my opinion. But if they're both technical, strength really plays a factor. And then an AP had thrown also flexibility, agility, speed. That's also key to develop as well.
yeah,
If that person has those things as well, that's an advantage, right? Even against a strong technical person. I mean, look at
yeah,
look at the smaller guys who have that speed, agility, flexibility. Kyle Terra, Mikey Musumisi, who they compete at absolutes and they do well, right? And then I also threw in the cardio, because a man can't run, he can't fight, right? Um, and
yeah. The in the beginning, I remember, man, like as a when we got into jiu-jitsu, white belt, blue belt, it was like for me, it was jiu-jitsu hands down, right? Jiu-jitsu can beat anything, and that's it. You learn jiu-jitsu, you're made for life. That's it. Like you're good. And as time went on, it's like, wait, jujitsu is not everything, right? Because
right,
then you start learning that, hey, Muay Thai is a really tough art, right? And it's really what is it? It's legit. It's very technical. It's strategic as well, right? And if you get hit with one of those elbows at the right time in the right moment, you're out, right? So now jujitsu, it's not everything. And then so that starts separating the arts, and then you start looking into jiu-jitsu itself, and it's like, oh, jiu-jitsu, technique over everything. And I'm like, technique conquers all. And I'm like, all right, as long as I have technique, I'm good. But then you roll with someone who is 100 pounds heavier than you.
right,
So and although technique obviously will beat it, it has to get to a certain point, right? You have to still what is it? Weather that storm or whatever. But
right,
now, like you said, now you have. Let's say both of you have technique. Now, who's gonna have that extra 5 minutes, right? Because now technique really doesn't matter. It's that cardio. Who's gonna have that extra strength? Who goes to the gym after? Who does those extra 5 minutes, right? So those extra 5-10 minutes, like we were talking about earlier, right? That's gonna beat everything else because she's developing a lot more or whatnot.
yeah,
So yeah, man. I think all of
100%,
this starts to now like start separating, right? Because now it's different. Now everyone is learning jujitsu, so the baseline is becoming a little bit higher, right? And now who's going to the gym after,
yeah,
or who's even doing something extra, at home
right.
or whatnot. So
Yeah, and if you look at all the high level competitors, the guys that are on the biggest stages, winning the highest, accolades of the sport, they're not just they're doing all of these, right? This is the formula for you to get better. Obviously, they're focusing on their game. They're spending that extra time. They're doing things outside of the mat. They're eating well. They're living that full lifestyle, for them to get prepared for that particular event or whatever the case, or just in general, right? If you look at the way they're training, it's not just just an average role, or just them teaching a class, or taking a class. They're doing things with a particular purpose. So these are the 5 things that we believe that will help you improve your jujitsu. They're not. It's not a specific technique. It's not anything that's just general. I think advice from that we've gained over the years, that we've seen throughout our journey, that I believe will help everyone. If you kind of invest a little bit more time into these five, will definitely help bring up your game, just another level, just a notch, and this is something that I'm hoping to really focus on too this year. I know we talked about resolutions and stuff like that, but really 2022 goals is really to implement these in my own jiu-jitsu, so that I can be a better version of myself, not for competition or anything like that, but for myself as well as for my students. Obviously, be able to offer them something more than what we've done in the past. So, because we got big
Mm.
goals for 2022. So, but yeah, but
Right, right.
that's it, man. I mean, that's what we wanted to talk about. Now, we still have 10 minutes, and I wanted to go over a couple things, and because 2022 is exciting, we have a major event this year that comes around every 2 years. It was supposed to happen last year, but it didn't because of the pandemic. But it's happening this year. Is ADCC 2022, right? And last one was in 2019, I think in Anaheim. I think Diego, you were there, right? You went to last
That
ADCC in California.
the last one, not last year. Yeah,
The
yeah, the
last one,
last
the
one that
last one,
was
2019, I think it was, right
yeah,
before the
yeah, yeah,
pandemic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was cool and weird at the same time
Why was it
because
weird?
I was by myself. It was
Oh
like
yeah,
yo, it's like I looked to my right, to my left. You're excited, like you can't really cheer, right? You're cheering by yourself, like it's weird, man. It's like you
yeah.
know,
Diego
you're
was the
the
one
you're
with he was the one
yeah,
with the big finger doing this.
exactly. You're the only one. You're the only, laughing at your own jokes. It's like okay, I gotta go. But
Yeah,
no, no,
not
but it was nice. Because at that time I really didn't know too many people who were on stage, but being able to, this was far away, right? Because the seating, but it was interesting, seeing them. I think was that the time that Tim Spriggs wore the hoodie,
yeah.
and I think I saw him live in the little corner, while everybody was watching, obviously on TV, it's more up close. But things like that were cool, like seeing it live,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So Tim Spriggs
mhm.
was wearing a Roll Star hoodie. Shout out to
While
Tim.
he was
Yeah,
warming up. That was cool.
yeah, he was warming up. So I was like, oh, that's dope, man.
Yeah.
But I
But
mean,
this year they're happening again. This year is
it's
coming up
happening
again.
again in September in Vegas. It's actually going to happen in Vegas, which is interesting because they usually kind of go around the world. I mean, Brazil, they're doing it. I don't know if they've done it in
Mhm.
like Abu Dhabi for a long time, right? In the Middle East for a long time. But I know they did it in California a couple years ago. They were in Brazil not too long ago as well. But this time they're going to be in Vegas,
Nice.
and there's some pretty big names. One cool thing, and we'll talk about some of the names that have been invited, which is one interesting thing because you have two ways to get to the tournament, right? You can qualify, meaning you have to win a trial, right? And there's several trials throughout the world, right? We already had the North American trials. I think they had the European trials, and I think they're scheduling the West Coast trials very soon. And there's a couple other ones around the world. Um, or you can be invited, right? Which is awesome, right? Like if you're a stud and you've been winning everything, you get to go, you get to invited. And I think I don't know, maybe being invited probably be the coolest thing, right? I mean, you're just a superstar, and all of a sudden, boom, hey, come through. But yeah, this is probably the Olympics of submission grappling, I'd say, right? Right. It's exciting to know that it's coming. Ever since it's been on Flow, I've been watching even like older clips and stuff like that. I've always admired it. Honestly, like ever since I started jiu-jitsu and knowing about ADCC, it was just like, wow, that's the biggest thing ever. I think even bigger than Worlds. Personally, for me, like I think that's like the Olympics, right? If you win that, you're like boom. But obviously, it's no gi, so it's different, and that's why it's submission grappling, and that's why it's known like that. But
Is it always no gi? Is it
it's
always no
always
gi?
no. It's always no gi. It's always no gi. So I wonder if that's why I think worlds. If you win worlds at the gi, that's legit. That's okay.
Right,
You're the
right.
best in the gi. If you win uh, ADCC, you're the best in no gi. I mean, in my
Mm,
opinion. I mean, obviously, no gi worlds is legit too, but I don't think it's at the same level of
yeah,
prestige, right,
mm,
as ADCC. So, but
mm,
that's happening this year. So that's super exciting. But one of the cool things for me is they're having an induction for the Hall of Fame. and they have several names that they're going to be inducting into the Hall of Fame. I think this is the first time that they're inducting so many people like at an event. I think they've inducted some people before. I think there's like one person in the Hall of Fame. I want to say it's Hodger, but Hodger for some reason is on the list for this year. So I
Yeah.
don't know if maybe that's an unofficial, and this is the official induction. I think they're having a ceremony. So they're actually inducting like 8 people, which is pretty cool because the names that are on there, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, are really well known. You got Hodger Gracie. You got Andre Galvao, who's the current, a super fight champion, and he's scheduled to be fighting Gordon Ryan, which is a very exciting fight. I mean, I think everybody's
I hope
hyped
it
up. This fight.
happens.
I
Yeah.
hope it happens. I hope it happens. I mean, I think
Yeah.
everybody's hyped up. I mean, whatever the pay-per-view is, I'm paying for that because that's the one I really want to watch. You got Marcelo Garcia. I mean, there's no question. The GOAT. I think he's the
Yeah,
GOAT.
man.
Braulio Stima, who's a legend. Hoyler Gracie. You got Dean Lister, who's amazing, and the original leg lock king, and you got Kyra Gracie, right? Kyra, who's like probably the pioneer of women's jiu-jitsu, right? Along with some other females, but she's probably the biggest name, especially at ADCC. And then you got Ricardo Arona, who former MMA fighter, big legend. I don't know so much about him. He's a little bit before our time, I think, with jiu-jitsu, but I looked him up a little bit, and I do recall him more in the MMA days. But stud as well. So you got 8 people coming into the Hall of Fame, which is really cool that they're doing that, honoring people who've participated, who competed at this event, who've won multiple times, and man, I think that they all deserve it. So it's nice to see that they're being recognized. Fernando, are you gonna watch the ADCC?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. It's funny. It wasn't until like the one in Anaheim that I started to get interested in it.
Yeah.
Before that, one, I wasn't really
Yeah,
like,
same.
They didn't really have it available so easily though.
Yeah, and so like starting to like follow more of the grapplers, like Gary Tonin was one that I really enjoy his style.
Oh, yeah.
Lachlan Giles, when he made that run all the way to I think the absolute was it the finals? Or was up like semifinals maybe. I think he lost to Gordon Ryan, I believe. Craig Jones, Gordon Ryan, even the Rotolo brothers when when he fought one of them when they
Paulo.
fought Meow. Yeah, exactly.
And his leg was like
like it snapped off.
That was crazy.
Those type of things. So I'm definitely gonna be interested. Like I've like recently, like thanks to Flow, having the subscription, like watching the Who's Number Ones now.
Those are great.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't get enough of those. I'm looking forward to the one later on this month. Even like trying to check out the worlds and the pans and things like that. But definitely definitely ADCC, but like a lot of the grapplers that I like and I admire, they'll be competing.
And I think the technology has definitely made it easier for all of us to be able to benefit from that. I mean, obviously you have old clips probably of people recording it with their video cameras at the time and posting it on YouTube later on. But obviously with the development of technology, social media, Flow has made it easy for people like us to be able to watch and enjoy those type of events. So shout out to Flow Grappling for that, for sure, man. Huge fan of the work that they do, and obviously they're just going to continue to get better. But yeah, I think that's I think for the Anaheim in 2019 was really the one that made it more public, right? They put it more on the map. Obviously, other ones are huge, and if you go back and see some of those events, are really good too. But that's really where things came to light. The marketing was better. I mean, this one is being hyped up even more. I mean, the controversy between Gordon Ryan and Andre Galvao. I don't know if maybe that was just staged or whatever, whether it was or not.
But it worked.
It's working. It's working for sure.
I ain't had nobody slap me, even if it's staged, man. Like that, no way.
But yeah, so I think that buildup is really great. And obviously there's some huge names coming back. You got JT coming to defend his title. You got some of the winners, Cole Abate, Cade, who won. You got Lucas Lepre, Davey Roy Ramos, who won before. Nicky Ryan is invited. I'm not sure how his knee's holding up, but hopefully he's healing up for this event. You got Shanji, you know, Craig Jones, a huge other whole bunch of people. Felipe Pena is supposed to be there.
Yeah,
Lavado
looking forward
Jr.
to it.
Yeah, man, it's some big names, and this is really like the creme de la creme, man. Like top dudes that are gonna be there. So for sure, it's gonna be an exciting event, and maybe we can schedule to watch it at the new school, man.
Oh
September.
yeah, man. Yeah.
I'm down for that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, man. Let me shout you out for that one, man. Congratulations on that. I know that we just posted it. We were supposed to be there this week, but I'm looking forward to that opening, man. I'm looking forward to you setting that up. Getting
Yeah,
my hands dirty with that as well, and so yeah, I'll let you take it from there.
yeah. So for those that don't know, or maybe know now because I posted on social media, we actually signed a lease for a new Roll Star Academy, Maryland,
Yeah,
here in Baltimore County area, and we're looking to hopefully open up April 1. That's
April.
the target. That's the target,
Yeah,
April 1. So we got these 3 months to build it out, but we're super excited. So we're getting started. Trying to get things going, and yeah, I mean September sounds like a pretty good time to do this event. I'm hoping to get a projector with a big screen and make it legit. So, but yeah, we'll
you
we'll
definitely plan
definitely,
for that.
yeah, for sure, we'll definitely plan for that. And definitely some Lambdas who roll open mats
Open mats,
in
yeah.
Maryland
For
for
sure.
sure. Yeah, man. But that's exciting, so that's coming up.
Yeah,
That's super exciting, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna keep on talking about it as it gets closer to the date, and probably
yeah.
after the event, we'll give our feedback on that. And then the other one that's happening in January, the other two major ones that Fernando kind of touched upon was the Who's Number One, right? That one's exciting. Probably for me the biggest one that I'm looking to see is probably Ty versus
Levi Jones
Levi,
Levi.
and
Mm.
Craig Jones. Craig Jones to see how he does. I don't know too much about the other competitor. I've seen some of his highlights. He looks pretty strong. It looks like he has a really strong passing game, but I don't know if that's going to play in his favor with someone like Craig Jones, who's right now considered the best in the world.
Is this guy the Craig Jones opponent? Because I don't remember his name off the top of my head as well. Is he like compete mostly in the gi?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
but he's a no-gi world champion too. So,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but the no-gi worlds at IBJJF, they're different than like submission grappling, where the rule sets are different. I think it plays more in Craig Jones' favor, and I think he's just been there a little bit more, and I think he'll probably come out with the nod. Um, with Ty just getting their black belts, but obviously competing for a very long time at that level, I think it'll be a good one. But we'll see. I think it's anyone's game at that point. And
That
then you
should be
got
good enough.
yeah, and then UFC 270, but with
And
Ngannou and Cyril Gane, yeah, and that one is probably the only one that I really interested in right now. I really haven't taken a look at the card, but we
Figueiredo
could talk
versus
about
Brandon Moreno is another one. Is the
is on that card.
Oh, nice,
Oh, God, again?
nice,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Ah,
Oh, oh.
Yeah.
it's because they don't have anybody else at
Mm.
that weight, man.
Yeah.
It's like they got to just make it happen for a third time. Why, man? He like choke him out the first last
He
time?
dominated him. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even close.
I don't know,
Mm.
bro.
You
I mean,
know.
they're exciting fights. I mean, I remember watching it both times. I was thrilled to see it, but I don't know if I want to watch it a third time. I don't know. That kind of speaks maybe to that division, but I don't know. But anyway, man, let's wrap this up. We're over the time. Let's go 30 seconds around the room. Fernando, last final words, man.
Yeah, I want to shout out, my coaches at Capital. Thanks for, like the competition class. It was an eye opener. This was my second one, but like this is the one where like I'm like wanted to be dedicated to it. So moving forward, I'll definitely be coming out there. Also to my line brother Marvin, who just started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I want to give him a shout out as well. Thank you for motivating me and keeping me from being lazy. So I appreciate that. And also to Hernan, congratulations as well, man. I'm super proud of you. opening up, your own academy and stuff like that. I've seen the hard work and the grind and the hustle that you've done, in the past, 6 years that I've been doing jujitsu, and even longer than that, like you said, teaching out of, schools, your own garage, things like that. So
I
this is
appreciate
this
that.
is a testament to your hard work, and I'm really super proud of you for that.
Appreciate it, man. D, last
Yeah,
30
yeah.
seconds, brother.
No, man. Yeah, just I guess a piggyback off that, man. Like, congratulations on that. Looking forward to it. Hope finally I'm happening after so much planning and talk. So really excited for that.
Yeah,
And yeah, just looking forward to getting back to training. As slowly and as best as possible now, with this whole, everything that's happening. But yeah,
yeah.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah, same thing for me, and I really appreciate your well wishes, and just keep us in your prayers, making I'm personally faith, really faithful dude, and ask God to help us out and grant us success. Nothing's gonna happen unless He wills it. So, but yeah, and hopefully we'll make it happen and open the doors on April 1st. We'll have a huge event, probably for I think my goal is for uh May to once the weather gets a little bit better and we're kind of out of this crazy time that we're in. Have like a nice grand opening, invite a whole bunch of people and stuff. So I'm definitely getting a lot of support, which is great. I can't wait to start, and we'll put some progress pictures as we move forward. Right now we're just waiting on some permits, but once we break ground, we'll definitely start putting stuff up and let people see what's
Word.
going on. But other than that, man, everybody take care. I still got a few more days of quarantine to get a little bit better, so I'm hoping to be back on the mats in another week or so. But take care. Obviously, this COVID thing is not going away anytime soon, and it's not a joke. Honestly, they was kicking my butt for a few days, but gladly I'm okay now. Thank God about that. But just take care of each other. Focus on your health. Honestly, that's key, really key. It's significant for you to really focus on your health, and jiu-jitsu is a great way to do that, especially with all this crap going around. So be safe. Diego got to go train. We got people ringing the bell.
Yeah,
Go open mat. So
yeah,
till then, train hard, train smart.
yeah.
Train.
And let me find the button to close this thing out
I'm gonna get the wrap it up, but I'm gonna get the wrap
and
it
wrap
up
it up.
box.
I think he
Uh,
needs to just a sign like that.
we
But with
will.
that said, bye, Samper, everybody. Have a
Para
good one
siempre.
now. Us.
Os